Hey folks, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. And hey, today I've got JT from GameCrafter to do an interview with us, talk about the GameCrafter, talk about the games. How's it going, JT?
It's good. It's all good. I'm glad to be here, honestly. Been watching your show for quite a while. I think you had only maybe 2,000 followers the first time I saw one of your episodes, and you're like more than 10 times that by now. So,
Yeah, it's growing. So yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, you've been on the channel for a long time. The Dungeon Dive has had kind of a relationship, I think, with the GameCrafter, and I think Tavis reached out to me pretty early
hmm
with the support with getting review copies, and
hmm
it's one of the things I really like to do on the channel is bring attention to some of the smaller games. And
Yeah,
I think you guys are producing some of my favorite games.
that's always
It's
good to hear.
it's kind of crazy that I think my second favorite dungeon crawl of all time, Quest for the Lost Pixel,
Yeah,
would
that's a
would
great game.
yeah, would literally not exist without the Game Crafter. That's what I tell people. Because I know that Pete, the designer, he doesn't want to do Kickstarter. He doesn't want to do any kind
Right.
of crowdfund because that's so much work.
Absolutely. Yep.
And he can kind of offset a lot of that work to you guys.
Indeed. Yeah,
And it
that's
doesn't really,
exactly right.
and it, from what I understand, it doesn't cost him anything, right?
Right. Well, actually, that's not entirely true. We
Okay.
do require the designer to buy at least one copy of their
Oh,
game, as
okay.
a proof.
Yep.
Because if you're not
Yep.
willing to
Yep.
make sure that it looks good for your customers, we don't want you to have it on our shop.
That's
So,
great. Okay.
yeah,
So that's the only kind of upfront cost
that's
to
right.
a developer, to a designer, is
Yep.
they send you
Uh,
the files. They have to buy one copy as a final proof.
Yep. And that's it. And then they can publish it to our shop and start collecting royalties off of sales that they get. Um, we market the website, but we don't market individual games. So the other, I guess, cost to them is whatever they want to put in as far as marketing effort
Oh,
of
interesting.
the individual games. We, like I said, we market the store as a whole, but
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
market individual games. So.
Do you guys offer any kind of marketing solutions to designers?
We offer a number of things within the site and external with our social media. So you can, for example, you can pay to use our social media and when I say pay, you're using crafter points when you do this.
Okay.
So crafter points are a thing you earn. It's like frequent flyer miles. When you buy something on the Game Crafter, you get crafter points, right?
Okay.
And so they can use crafter points to buy advertising within the site, promoting their own game. They can use that to get notification or get their game shared out onto our social media, that sort of thing. Uh, but we don't provide other marketing tools. Like I said, we do not specialize in individual games at all
Yeah, yeah.
as far as marketing. It's just there's too many games for us to do that, and then we'd have to
So
pick
many.
winners and losers, and that's not a fun place to be.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a kind of an interesting proposition to say, well, you guys should users should buy this game and not this game when
Right.
you don't really want that. Yeah, I guess we should back up a little bit. Maybe I jumped the
Sure.
gun on this conversation, but the Game Crafter is a tool. It's a resource that designers can use to create very great prototypes and finished games to
Right.
sell. It's a print on demand DIY game creating service. Would you say is that a good explanation of what the Game
Yeah.
Crafter is?
Our kind of mission, I guess, if
Hmm.
you will, is to be the one-stop shop for everything a game designer needs. So we start off by providing a really big community of game designers that you can chat with and get feedback from on early ideas about games. So we
Oh, that's
have
cool. So do you guys have like a designer forum?
Yep,
Designer,
we
okay,
have a community on Reddit, we have a community on Facebook, and we also have our Discord. Um,
okay.
so we provide this community, we facilitate this community through all kinds of things. We're always supporting the community through donations, through contests, through discussion points. Whatever way we can do it. We pay our community, literally pay our designers to go to conventions and promote their games.
Okay.
So like all kinds of stuff like that, we do those kinds of things to promote and facilitate that community. And then on top of that, that's the starting point. But then we give you all of the templates you need and videos and documentation. How do you design a game? How do you format the stuff for our website? We provide all those kinds of tools, and then we provide the way for you to print a copy of your game so that you can make a prototype, like you said. And then we go further than that because we have our shop where you can publish your game and start selling it to other people. Plus, we have a crowdfunding platform on our site called CrowdSale, so
Yep.
that you can, kind of do that aspect of it on a very easy basis, way easier than Kickstarter.
So
Uh,
much easier. Yeah,
yeah,
because you don't have to deal with a pledge manager. You don't have to deal with any of that. Like running the campaign is probably the easiest part of a crowdfunding campaign.
absolutely.
It's all the crap after. I mean, I hate the after crap as a consumer,
Yeah,
having to keep track of
me
all of your
too.
pledge managers. And did I pay the shipping? Did I pay for that?
Yeah,
Where am I? How long am I going to be waiting? Yeah. So
yeah. So we take care of all that. There is no pledge manager you have to
yeah,
deal with after the fact.
yeah,
It literally just goes straight into production and then gets shipped to you as a consumer. So, and then as a game designer who's published through a crowd sale, you again don't have to collect surveys. You don't have
yeah.
to deal with customer service complaints about something got lost in shipping or whatever.
Yeah, you
Um,
guys handle any kind of customer service things after the fact. Like if a card was misprinted or something was missing, they contact you,
yep.
not the designer of the game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
And to your point about what you said about what Pete said to you about Quest for the Lost Pixel, that's exactly why he likes crowd sales and
yes, yep,
selling on our site, because all he has to do is design and market the game. We literally take care of everything else.
yeah.
Um, and so beyond that, there's all kinds of other things that we do. We support a lot of conventions. We have a game design software called Component Studio.
Hmm.
Like I said, we put out all kinds of videos, and those videos aren't just tutorials about how to use our service, but community-oriented videos. Like we have this whole ongoing series called the Board Game Blueprint, which is all about the game designer's life, right? Like things they have to topic or they have to talk about, like how do you go talk to a game store about your game? How do you design the box, for retail experiences? How do you find playtesters? And is AI art okay to use in your game? And all of those kinds of topics, we cover those kind of lifestyle things through the Board Game Blueprint. So we do all of these different things to kind of be the entire thing that a game designer might need to have, the whole ecosystem in one place.
That's really interesting. Now there are. I want to talk to you about the two kind of elephants in the room that
Hmm.
whenever I cover a Game Crafter game,
Yep.
there are two things that always come up.
Yep.
One is the price of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and the other is the cost of shipping outside of the US. So
Yeah.
those things always come up. Even if I
Hmm.
like say, okay, guys, yes, I know these games can be expensive, and unfortunately, if you're outside the US, that can be another
Even more
hurdle,
expensive.
even more
Yeah.
expensive. So I
Yep.
try to convey to people the print on demand aspect. Can you talk a little bit about pricing and give your expertise on print on demand versus games that benefit from the economy of scale and that kind of
Right.
thing?
Yeah. So we're always printing one copy at a time, exactly one. And that's the entire business model is built around for the Game Crafter, is short run. So everything about from our, the way we train our people to the processes that we use to the equipment that we use, everything is built around being able to make one copy at a price that isn't going to pull your hair out. It's more expensive than you're used to, but it's not like a car expensive, which is
Yeah.
what, like if you go to a long run manufacturer and they make a prototype for you, that one copy could be $1,000 easily.
Yes, that's what I know that even like a $300 prototype copy from the Game Crafter, that's still much cheaper than it was 10 or 15 years ago
Hmm.
to make a prototype, which
Absolutely.
it's super, super expensive to
Right.
make a
And we can
prototype.
make prototypes depending on the size of the game that you're doing, we can make a single game for less than $10. So that's That's amazing to be able to have that right now, because that didn't used to exist. That,
Yeah.
before us, that wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's expensive. I agree, it's expensive. We're always trying to figure out how we can bring those costs down. But the reality is, we're working off of one copy at a time, not 1,000 or 10,000 copies at a time. So the economies of scale aren't there. But we provide tools so that the economies of scale can be there, like the crowd sale that we
The
talked
crowd
about before.
sale. So the crowd sales, I'm imagining that you guys schedule those because
Hmm.
you have only a certain number of printers that are able to be running. So how do you schedule those? How does a designer approach you? Say, hey, I want to do a crowd fund. What's the lead in time? How long do they have to wait to get their crowd fund going?
Yeah. So they don't have to wait at all, actually. We don't we
Oh,
don't
okay.
we don't dictate when they can run their crowd sale. Um, we actually have this whole queue management system that we've developed over the 16 years we've been doing this, to facilitate any of that, those fluctuations in orders. Like you said, there'll, sometimes we already have a full queue of
Yeah.
stuff to work on. It doesn't matter. We just add it to the end of the queue. We'll do
Okay.
that. Which means sometimes when you back a crowd sale, it might take you 3 months to get the game,
Yeah.
which is still
Especially if
faster than a
it's
Kickstarter.
yeah, I know he's not like 3 or 4 years that some. I mean, I
Right.
remember. I think it was one of Jason Glover's games. I think it might have been like Tin Helm or something.
Hmm.
That there was a long wait, but he was telling people, and I was telling people, well, hey, the crowdfund was very successful, so that means there's
Hmm.
a lot of games in that queue,
Hmm.
and those games get added to the end of whatever line is already ahead of them. So
Right.
yeah.
Yep. And so that's what we do. We have four different queues. So there's the regular production queue. If you place an order from our website, just go through
Hmm.
the cart and check out. That goes into the normal production queue. If you go into a crowd sale, or if you're a company ordering a massive quantity of games, those go into what's called the bulk queue. Which is, that's where we start giving you discounts based on quantities.
Yeah. Okay. So you can offer that. So if I was a designer and I made a game and I came to you and said, hey, I want to print 40, 50 copies of my game to take it to this convention, you guys
Hmm.
do offer a discount if you say up front that you want a bulk order?
Yep. If you
Okay.
order 10 or more copies, it automatically gets put into the bulk queue.
Ah,
So,
okay.
because at that point we're
Mhm.
starting to give discounts at 10 plus copies. So whether it be a crowd sale or you're ordering in bulk, those go into the bulk queue. The bulk queue
Okay.
runs a little slower usually,
Yep. Yep.
because it's massive orders that are going in there. But that's how we keep the normal orders, keep pushing those through, because those are two separate queues and we have two separate teams working on those queues. We also have the urgent queue, which is you basically pay double and you get it.
Yeah.
Run to the front of the queue. All right.
Yep.
So you're the next game we're going to work on when you do urgent. And then the final one is the parts queue, and that's just you ordered something that we don't have to make on demand. Like if you're ordering just dice, we didn't make those dice. We ordered those from someplace else. They're just sitting on a shelf somewhere, so somebody can just go grab those off the shelf and give them to you. So that queue runs separately, just because there's no reason for somebody to wait for something that's already pre-made.
Oh, right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So your manufacturing of the cardboard and the things that you guys print, that's done in the United States, correct?
yes, yep, in Madison,
And
Wisconsin.
Madison, and do you guys have like, are all of your offices and everything at that printing location?
Yes.
Do you own your own printers and everything?
We own almost all of everything. The printers are the one thing we don't actually own. We lease
Hmm.
those
Okay,
because it's,
okay, yeah, you lease them, but
yeah.
only Game Crafter is using them.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like one of the big manufacturers in China, like Panda, where all kinds of different publishers are using the same printers.
Yeah, yeah. No, everything we do is dedicated 100% to the Game Crafter and the Game Crafter only. So it's not like we also own a business card printing company or something like that, or
Yeah,
wedding invitations or something like that, where we're, producing these other things and that's putting the games on hold. Everything we do is about making the games for our customers.
interesting. Have you seen an influx in questions or in from designers or even some publishers coming to you guys to talk about manufacturing games because of what's going on with tariffs right now, with people wanting to make more things in the United States? hopefully.
Yeah.
Is that, have you seen anything like that?
We do see an influx of new stuff. Like when that first big tariff was announced, I was at a convention that weekend and my phone just started going crazy
Okay.
because I was getting tagged in hundreds or thousands of posts across social media. Um,
Uh-huh.
and we're happy to help people out, but they need to understand that we're not going to be as cheap as China. It's just not what we do. And we also don't specialize in long run printing. Our last discount ends at 1,000 copies. We'll give you 1,000 copy discount. But if you order 5,000, you're not going to get a better discount, per copy than you get at the
Okay.
1,000 print. Because again, all of our people, our processes, and our machinery are all designed around this short run kind of model.
Right,
Um,
right.
so we do work with a lot of longer run publishers here in the U.S. or printers here in the U.S. Such as Cartamundi. Cartamundi has three different production facilities, although you need to have 5,000 minimums to go to them. We also work with uh,
Yeah,
Delano.
you're
So
right. A
okay,
lot of printers have a minimum order that
right,
a designer or publisher would need to print to make it worthwhile.
yeah,
Whereas Game Crafter, you
one.
could design a game and only ever print one copy of that game.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, we work with Delano as well. They are over in Michigan and they have a minimum of 2,000 copies. So you're still going to have those minimums, and they'll get better prices than you'll get from us because we stop our discounts at 1,000, right? But
Hmm.
you're not going to get better prices than China because the entire industry of making board games is in China currently.
Yes, right.
So it's not just the making of the games, but the paper is made, in China. The ink is made in China. The
Yeah.
wood is made in China. The wood bits, the dice, the everything that you're thinking of, plastic injection molding, all that stuff is done in China, not in the United States. And so there's this whole ecosystem there that, here I'm one company, Delano is one company,
Mhm.
Cartamundi is one company, but all that other ecosystem infrastructure doesn't exist here. There's not a single, to my knowledge, a single company in the United States that manufactures dice, for example.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, as far as I know, there isn't a single one. Now, there might be like some really specialized craft
Spe
dice on Etsy or
exactly, like
something like that.
carved metal dice or something
Right,
like that.
right, but
Yeah,
not
yeah,
not like at scale dice like you're
yeah.
expecting to get them cheap. Um,
Well, yeah,
so
right.
so yeah, that sort of thing doesn't exist in the United States to my knowledge, and I've been looking for it for 16 years, so I don't think it exists.
Yeah, I
So
bet you. Yeah, I mean, I bet you would be. I mean, it's not like, I tell people that print on demand, the copy you are getting was printed for you, and that, it's not like the game crafter wants to make things more expensive than they are. I'm sure
right.
they are constantly thinking about ways to bring down the cost, but there are things we have to keep in mind, and one of those is shipping. And
Yep.
after, man, I mean, COVID threw the entire shipping industry on its head. We still haven't
Mhm.
really recovered from that. And so we're still paying crazy prices for shipping all over the world.
Mhm.
And on top of that, the Game Crafter being based in the United States, shipping over to the UK, not only does it cost money, but they have to pay their tariff when they receive it
Mhm.
as what, the VAT tax or something,
The VAT tax.
yeah,
Yep.
the value added tax. And
Mhm.
so I have, oddly, the Dungeon Dive does have uh, a large number of people overseas who watch the channel. And
Mhm. We have a
uh,
large number of customers overseas, so it's something we really care about.
yeah,
20% of our orders get shipped outside the United States, just so
really,
people know.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not a small amount that we definitely care about how much it costs people to get their stuff in the EU or in the UK or Canada or Australia or anywhere, right? It doesn't matter
Mhm.
where it is. Brazil. We ship stuff to nearly every country in the world. So,
I
um,
know some Dungeon Dive viewers have gone together on like a group order,
yes.
and they'll have it shipped to a central, whoever's like the most central person
Hmm.
in the EU or something, and then they'll distribute them when they meet up for some convention or something.
Right.
Has the Game Crafter explored ways to bring those costs down? Have you guys talked about having overseas manufacturing or anything?
Yeah.
An EU game crafter?
Sure. Let's talk about all the different options there.
Yeah,
There's quite a
yeah.
few. So let's start with the EU Game Crafter. We would love to do that, but unfortunately, it's going to just to set up a basic operation, it would take us about 2 million euros. That we just don't have the money for. We're a
Hmm.
tiny little company
Very,
here.
yeah,
Having an extra spare 2 million euros just lying around that we could invest in a somewhat risky idea of
yeah.
opening up another franchise in Europe is a pretty tall order for us. So if there's somebody out there listening that wants to do that, please get a hold of me. But I just don't know how to do that right now. As far as other options, we're constantly looking at the shipping options. Of course, we aren't a shipping company ourselves, so we have to
Right.
rely on what we can get for what we can buy out in the market. And we are actually about to launch. Well, not about to. That's putting it too fast. Later this year, we should launch another new international shipping option that should be slightly cheaper than what we have now, which is already one that we went and did a couple of years ago, which was like half price for what we used to ship for international. So we're
Hmm.
already in a better place there, but we're looking at more options to get it even better. We also recommend, like, if you're doing a crowd sale, we do recommend going in on a group, like you said, and having
Yeah, yeah,
people order together because then you're only paying the tariffs once, you're only paying the shipping once, amortized across as many games as possible.
yep.
We do also, a lot of people may not know this, but we have retail partners in various countries around the world.
I have heard that now from a few people that
Yeah,
a few Dungeon Dive viewers that hey they're stocking Game Crafter games now in some stores, and so I would
right.
imagine if that happens, then the importer, the retailer
Hmm.
is paying for the shipping, is paying for the VAT, and
Correct.
so they
But
can
they're
pass.
again doing that thing where they can amortize the
Yeah,
cost of that shipping over all of these different games. So, like,
right.
a couple of weeks ago, we just sent another pallet of games to Wooden Tree Games, which is in Germany, and they handle the whole EU. They'll sell to anybody in the EU, and they have a whole bunch of different games that they have from the Game Crafter on that pallet, right? So. If there is a game that's on the Game Crafter that you want and you're in the EU, reach out to Wooden Tree Games and say, "Hey, could you get
That's
that into your next order?" Right?
That's
Uh,
awesome. Okay,
yeah.
yeah, I know
Um,
that I have quite a few people in Germany who I talk to on a regular basis, so I'll make sure. I mean, they'll watch this, but make sure
yeah.
that they know about that. Yeah,
Yeah. If you're in Canada, we work with Board Game Bliss, I should say. And so if there's a game you want from the Game Crafter, let them know that that's a game that's interesting to you because we ship them stuff all the time. And so they can again amortize those costs across their entire order because we're shipping a lot of games to them all at once. It's not just one game at a time. So we don't have partners in, like, Australia is a fairly large country that we ship to very regularly. We
hmm
don't have a partner like that there, but if somebody's listening to your show and wants to partner up with us for that kind of thing, reach out and we will work with you on that, just like we have with these other partners that I've just mentioned. So if there's not something in your area, reach out to us and we'll see what we can do with you.
that's super cool. Now, as far as partnership goes, I've often wondered. I get I'll do an order with Tavis. He'll set me up with some review copies.
Hmm.
And then I still buy quite a few things as well. When Tavis sends me a review copy,
Hmm.
is the Game Crafter buying that copy
Yes,
from the designer? So the designer does get their royal or their payment for
that's
the
right.
review
They
copy that I receive.
That's right. Yep. We pay them the royalty for that, and we pay for the manufacturing and shipping costs when we send you a free
That's
review copy.
okay. That's super cool.
Yeah. So the
That's
designer isn't out anything by us sending free review copies when they are requested by people such as yourself. So
Do you guys send out quite a few review copies?
we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of different YouTubers, podcasters, people, bloggers, that are doing reviews on stuff. And if somebody has a blog and they're interested in a particular game and they reach out to us, we almost always say yes, unless sometimes it's people that are just trying to get a free copy of one game, and that's a fairly obvious attempt. But if they have a history of reviews, like they have, they showcase their work out there, we almost always comply with those requests. So,
Yeah, I've really enjoyed my working relationship with you guys, and just because I do like so many of the games that you guys print, and
Thank
like I
you.
was saying, a lot of these games just would not. I tell people like Quest for the Lost Pixel is the ultimate example. Just that game would not exist at all without
Hmm.
without the game crafter. And you know, I know Pete really likes working with you guys. And what kind of advice do you have for people like Pete who want to make somewhat of a substantial game? You know,
Hmm.
kind of walk me through some of that. I know there are different levels. You know, you have like the Mint 10 and
Hmm.
people like working with that because I think you have, you know, like you have a certain number of sheets of cards, and so you have to
Hmm.
design your game around that. But then you scale up to these really big games with thousands of cards.
Yep.
What's a kind of some beginning advice that you would give to a designer who wants to make a game specifically to be made at the Game Crafter?
Right. Well, if you are the first thing that that designers need to get over is that the price isn't going to be what you want. And most of the designers aren't business people. They don't realize that there are customers out there that will pay the price if they like your game,
Yeah,
right? And just like you said, Pete's game is not a cheap game at all.
no, it's
Uh,
very it's very
yeah.
expensive.
I'm forgetting what the price of it is right off the top of my head, but it's like $150 maybe,
I
something like
think
that.
so. There's evidence of me. I think Deborah from Geek Gamers was the
Hmm.
first kind of bigger channel to cover it. And I
Hmm.
watched her play it. And there's a post from me on her YouTube channel, me going like, this game looks really cool. Oh, never mind. I just saw the price.
Yeah.
And then I broke down and I bought it and like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So some of these games are pretty expensive when they get big, like Pete's. And at $150, he still sold more than 1,000 copies of that game. So it's not like there isn't an audience out there, even if your game is expensive, as long as it's good, as long as it
Mhm.
presents itself well. And it obviously doesn't hurt being on the Dungeon Dive, right?
Right, yeah.
I know he's been on numerous lists on your channel, like obviously you did a whole episode just on the game itself, but on various lists over
Yeah.
time, I've seen episodes where you're like, my favorite game of 2024 or whatever, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what the episodes were, but I've definitely seen them because I've seen so many of your episodes, they're sort of blending together at this point. But you've had different things like that, and so he's been featured a number of times and on other channels as well. And I'm sure
Yep.
all of those things have helped him sell those 1,000+ copies that he's done. But he had to get out there initially somehow, and it was through his own hard work that happened. That is an easier thing to do if you're selling a smaller game. It's easier to
Hmm.
get somebody to bite if you're selling a smaller game. So I always recommend that people start small, and start with a Mint 10 or start with a 18 card game or even a 54 card game. Start with something small, because it's easy for you to design and make sure you're doing a good job of it. When if it gets to be sprawling, it's much harder to make sure that game is really, really good.
Right.
Um, that said, once you're confident that you can make a game at the size of Quest for the Lost Pixel, which is an enormous game,
It's
um,
so many cards. I tell
so
people like there are almost 1,000 cards in this game, and
yeah.
even smaller games like Iron Helm, which
Hmm.
again would probably only exist because of the Game Crafter, has quite a few cards. Another one of my favorites was Rogue Dungeon, and
Yeah.
you know they have gone off now to do their own thing through Kickstarter, but even that had a lot of stuff to it, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, there's the point is just, make sure whatever you're putting out there is worth people's time, and that way when the word will spread, when somebody gets a hold of your game and feels the juicy bits of the game in their mouth, they're going to want to share, and be like, hey, this game was amazing. You have to check this out. Yeah, it's expensive, but it's worth it.
yeah,
That's the thing you need people to get to. And there is an audience out there for, we've been in business for 16 years, obviously. There's a reason that people come to us, because we provide quality game materials. Like, we can make your game look good. So now it's a matter of you making your game good to play, right? And so
yeah,
that's the number one thing: make it good to play. But also, I think when you're just new getting started, start small because it's easier for people to make a good game, and it's cheaper, so that if you do have an audience that's trying to overcome that price, it's you can sell your game for 20 bucks or 30 bucks or whatever, and people aren't going to balk at that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Another game that I really like, Spacers, the space adventure board game.
yeah,
That game blew me out of the water.
it's
That
really good.
game is amazing. And that was actually went to the Game Crafter after it was a failed Kickstarter. Like
Hmm.
they failed to reach their goals. So I'm sure you see that quite often is people who it's almost like the Game Crafter is kind of like the next best for some
Hmm.
people.
Yep. For some people, like Pete, it's the first best
Yep.
because they don't want to run that Kickstarter in the first place.
Yep.
And those that do go to Kickstarter and either fail, or the more common option isn't even that they fail, but it'll be more the Jason Glover model. They succeeded, but then people are still asking for their game after they sold out. What do I do next?
What do I do
Right.
next? Yeah.
And
That's a
so
huge thing. Yeah.
yeah, that's a huge thing. And
Yep.
so you end up going, you could either try to do another Kickstarter and another print run, but then you have to go through all that hassle again, or you go to the Game Crafter and you just sell them as they are ordered. And so you don't have to maintain inventory, you don't have to do customer service. Like in Jason Glover's case, at least in the early days, he was hand assembling every game. He would order the parts from this place and that place and whatever, and put them together and then hand mail them out. That's a ton of work that
So much work.
you're not getting paid for, because you almost certainly did not charge enough to pay yourself for all that work.
Yeah, and
So,
most of these guys have, I mean, have full-time jobs that
right.
they're working, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, and
Yeah.
then having to deal with all the logistics of shipping out and assembling a game on top of
Yep.
that. I mean, that's
Yep.
just so much work.
Yeah, exactly. So it's we see it from all over the place. The different ways that you can be successful at this, but the big tip is, like I said, just make a good game, make it small if you're getting started, and get out there. And if you can make a big game and make it good, then by all means do that. It's just a little harder in the early days of marketing. But the other option is, if you got a big game and it's something that can be shown on a channel like the Dungeon Dive or others out there that'll show it, that's a way to get your word out that it's a good enough game to be worth whatever price is that you're charging for it. So,
Mhm. So I know the Dungeon Dive, I have a very narrow focus
right.
on the kind of
Yep.
games that I cover. So on the Game Crafter, I'm kind of completely unaware of the other kinds of games that
Mm.
you guys print. S-
Hmm.
What are some of the other categories that you find that sell really well?
Yeah. So the number one category on our site is definitely solo games.
Okay, so that
So, and
that's kind of a modern trend that a lot of
yeah.
people are moving towards. So you guys do kind of you see a specialization in the people who come to you wanting to make a solo game.
Yeah, it's actually more, it's not so much that the designers are coming to us wanting to make a solo game. It's that the solo community knows that the Game Crafter is a good place to pick up
Ah,
solo games.
okay.
So they're out
Hmm.
there buying. And so when somebody publishes a solo game to the site, it gets bought up in pretty decent numbers, especially when we run a sale.
Yeah.
Like we just finished our Cinco de Mayo sale. In that
Yep.
week that it was running, we sold like 5,000 more games, that week. And those again, these aren't our games. These are
Yeah.
the designers' games. So in that normal week, we would normally sell like 2,500 games. So we doubled the amount of games that
Wow.
designers sold in that one week because of that sale, right? So yeah, we do sales, and people in the solo community will be like, "Oh, the Game Crafter's running their next sale. Which games should we, what are on your list for this time?" And you can go see them if you're in one of the groups for solo gamers on Board Game Geek or Reddit or on Facebook or wherever they happen to be. You'll see them all planning. Oh, what are you getting this time? That because that's a new sale is coming. And so you'll definitely see that sort of stuff for the solo community, RPG community, RPG board gamers, which is more your
Yep.
flair. We see a lot of that. And that I attribute that one mostly to Jason Glover, actually,
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
does a lot of that sort of stuff. Although there's lots of people like Pete out there that are doing that now too. And the other thing that we see quite a lot of is kind of family weight games.
Yeah.
They're like one of my favorite family weight games that's on the site is called Flip. It looks like Uno if you looked at it, but it's a much better game than Uno as far as I'm concerned.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, there's lots of those kinds of things that you see on our site as well. And then one that's not even a game category, tarot. There's
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
So you guys do a lot of like custom tarot cards.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's lots of tarot YouTubers that
Hmm.
reach out to us and are like, "Hey, would you send us this, that, and the other thing?" And so tarot is another area where we have a strong community that's always buying game or buying cards. Some of them use them for games too. Tarot
Yep.
was originally a gaming system, but evolved into this much broader thing over
Yeah,
time.
I have two or three games that use a tarot deck, and
Hmm.
I haven't actually purchased a tarot deck yet. So now I
Hmm.
know where to go to get one.
There you
I'll
go.
have to go
So
shopping for a tarot deck
so yeah.
on the Game Crafter.
That said, I've listed some categories that are very popular on the Game Crafter. That said, we sell everything. So if you're a Euro gamer, we've got Euros. If you are a dice gamer, we've got dice games. Whatever it is that you happen to be, that is your niche. If you even miniatures games, we have and war games. We got pretty much everything is out there to some degree. And so it's just a matter of going out and looking through our catalog because there's in the published catalog, there's over 15,000 games in that library. So that's a
Wow.
lot of games. Yeah.
Jeez. Now, do you guys ever what's your method of culling stuff that hasn't sold in 5 years? Do you have a limit where if something falls off your active pages, how do you maintain your database of games?
Yeah. So we do this via something we call Game Rank. So we never cull anything.
Hmm.
Designers will, pull stuff off on their own sometimes, but we don't actually pull stuff off unless it becomes incompatible with our site. For example, um, sometimes a game will use a part that was made by some third party that we can no longer
You
get
can
that
no
part.
longer get. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So if they don't fix that problem, because we'll send out an email saying, "Hey, this thing is no
Exactly.
longer available." But if they don't fix that, then we'll have to pull them down because it's just not for sale anymore. There's no
Yep.
way to sell that game anymore. But generally speaking, we don't cull games from the library. We just leave them out there. What we do instead is we do game rank. So in our search engine, everything is sorted by game rank, and game rank is based on ways that you have done well in our community. Like reviews that you've gotten from reviewers, or number
Oh,
of sales
interesting.
that you've
Okay.
gotten from
Uh-huh.
from selling. Or if you've done an art test. We do these various test systems in our site to make sure that your game is good. So the art test is like, does it look good, right? And we also have something called the sanity test, which means that your rule book is good. That
That's
sort of
a
stuff.
that's an important one. The
Yeah,
the, the rule book is a science and an art that far too
right.
many people don't understand. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so yeah, and that's a good test in general too. If you're a buyer on the Game Crafter looking to see if you're on the fence about getting this game, if it has passed a sanity test, then you can be pretty sure that at least you'll be able to read the rules and figure out how to play the game. It doesn't mean that it's a good game, but the author
Right.
has gone through a certain amount of hoops to make sure that their game is of good quality.
So let's talk about that because that's really interesting. Now, first of all, that sanity test, is that a seal? Is that a stamp that a user can see on the game's landing page?
Yes. When you go
Okay.
to the game, you can actually see the list of accolades. And
Okay.
accolades are these little badges that appear on
Hmm.
there. And some of those accolades are like sales accolades. It's I've sold 300 copies of this game or whatever, that sort of thing. But there are accolades for tests. So if you have passed a community verified test, then you get this. If you pass the sanity test, you get a different accolade. And the sanity test accolades will tell you how well they passed that test. So did they get a
Hmm.
90 plus? That's the best you can do on a sanity test. You want to get a 90 plus on there. And if you did, you've done the best you can do in a sanity test. And then you can actually click on that accolade and see the results of that test, including all the comments that were left by the sanity tester saying, this is things you should fix in this or whatever, that
So
sort of thing.
who's doing the sanity testing?
We have three sanity testers on staff that have backgrounds in writing, and they
Wow.
will literally read the rules, look at the shop page, watch videos, that sort of thing, and make
Uh-huh.
sure they can figure out your game based on a rubric that we've come up with. And so we do this. we've done thousands of these sanity tests for various games.
That's really fast. I had no, this is a whole new information for me. This is really cool. So
Yeah,
does the designer, do they pay for that with
they
that
do.
with the Game Crafter currency? Do they pay for it with cash? What's the
That
process to go through that testing?
that one they have to pay for with currency
Yeah.
because
Uh-huh. Yep.
those people with English degrees are not
Yep.
cheap. All right,
They're edit. I mean,
so
they're professional editors.
that's right.
They're
Yep,
reading English is their main language that they understand
that's right.
because
Yep,
that happens a lot with Kickstarter stuff is so many times things are lost in translation because they're not paying for professional English translation.
right.
Their buddy who speaks English
Yep,
happened to read the rule book once, you know? So,
exactly.
okay,
Yep.
yeah.
So yeah, that's the sanity testers are all people that have backgrounds in technical writing, and then they have been trained, by the other sanity testers how to do it before they even like start doing or when they're grading their first test, they're trained by the other sanity testers that are already there to make sure that everybody's kind of doing a consistent job at how it's doing. We even have a private forum where the sanity testers talk with each other when there's a
Hmm.
question about that sort of thing. Because the other thing that happens is sometimes people will fail a sanity test and then the test will come back in a second time. And so then the sanity testers will chat with each other. Like this time it's a different sanity tester checking it, and they might have a question on what the previous sanity tester said about that thing.
And that's awesome. Now, can somebody who isn't using the Game Crafter to print or sell their game, can they use that sanity testing? Can they just pay for that service?
No, they
Okay,
cannot.
okay. So
You
it's kind of a whole package thing.
Right, because it's
Yeah,
actually
okay.
it's all built into the subsystems behind the scenes. So the sanity testers have access to see things about the game that normal people can't see. Um,
Gotcha. Yep.
and
Yep.
so your game literally needs to be in our system for them to be able to do their job.
But if you're doing
So,
a prototype, I mean, anybody who's designing a game, I would recommend them use the Game Crafter for their prototype just because
mhm,
they look nice. They feel nice to play. And so at that time, that would be a perfect time to have that sanity testing done.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
So yeah, that's
super cool.
it's definitely worth it. We do those art tests. Like I said, that's a good way to check your art. That one does cost crafter points because what we're doing there is we have you pay. I don't even remember what you pay, but you say pay some amount of crafter points to put your game up in the art test. We pick a bunch of random images out of your
Hmm.
game and show them to like a couple dozen people, and
Hmm.
they rate your images based on whatever the criteria of the art test. So it's members of the community that are all going through looking at this thing and going, does this look good to me? Or could it look better? And so they can just do something as simple as a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but they can also leave comments and all that, and you get a rating for that. And if you pass, again, you get an accolade for that. Community
What?
verified test is another one, but it's just like, is this person doing disgusting things in their game, or
Yeah.
like, did they have a
Is
Mickey Mouse logo? That's another thing, like
is
those
the
kinds of things.
rating is the age rating appropriate?
Right. Yeah.
What about accessibility
Hmm.
testing? Accessibility is something that I think is really important in games. Colorblind, fonts being too small. I mean, man, I have
Right.
some games where I literally have to use a magnifying glass to read the cards.
Yeah.
Do you guys offer anything like that?
That we should do that, but no, we don't do that currently. That would be a great idea. We do put like we have our design software called Component Studio that
Hmm.
has colorblind filters built right
Okay,
into it, for
okay,
example. But we don't actually offer a test for those that don't use Component Studio to go, hey, this should be colorblind friendly and it's not, that sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So we don't have a test for that currently, but we probably should add that.
That would be great because I mean, a lot of games do fail at that accessibility. If just the there's physical limitations that some people have with
Right.
games, and that could be easily fixed without having to spend more money, you
Right.
know.
Yep. Exactly.
I want to go back to the art because I think one of the other big elephants in the room these days is AI art.
Hmm.
And I've done a video on my thoughts on AI art, and one, art assets are very expensive.
Hmm.
People are cost conscious. There's a give and take. I think there are some maybe more ethical ways to use AI art than others.
Hmm.
I've told people on the channel that I'm not the AI police. And I don't
Hmm.
participate in AI witch hunts because I've seen people get accused and it's not
Oh
AI
yeah.
art. And so then they have to go and they have to like show their whole portfolio. So
Hmm.
I think it's a pretty complex situation. And I think, I mean, that cat's out of the bag, right?
Yeah.
We're not shoving that genie back into the bottle. So what does the game crafter have a stance on AI art? Do you recommend things? Do you recommend not using things? What kind of advice do you give for that?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Because like you said, the technology exists and it's
Yeah.
not going to go away.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so any stance that goes like, well, we just shouldn't have AI art is dead on arrival as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
That said, there are arguments for nuance with it.
Yep.
And so, I personally use AI art when I'm prototyping.
Yep.
But that said, I don't actually like the look of AI art from a professionalism point of view. Like,
Yeah.
so I actually, when I make a game, I still hire a real artist to do the real art for it. And I give them the AI art that I use during
Yeah.
prototyping as my starting point,
Yep.
like a mood sheet almost.
Yep.
So I find it actually helpful when I talk to my artists, when I'm hiring an illustrator, I find it helpful to show them this is what I was thinking, but I need these changes and I need it to have more of this mood and, that sort of stuff that is hard to get across in AI when you're making the stuff, right?
Yeah.
An illustrator, in a single sentence, I can accomplish what would take me an hour in talking to an AI to try to get it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And an illustrator will do it, a whole lot better. The other thing is that you get from an illustrator versus, using AI art. Yes, AI art is cheaper, but an illustrator usually has a following of their own. So when you go to publish your game, you're going to get the benefits of their
Yep.
community coming after, backing your game too, because they want to help that artist out. They like their art and want to see more of it, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So saying, you should always use AI art or you should never use AI art, I think is a weird stance. Um, as far as the game crafter, we don't police that at all. We do recommend that you post whether or not you used AI art,
Yeah.
because
That's kind of my bottom line is
yeah,
be upfront, then
yeah,
let
be
me
upfront.
as the
Yeah,
consumer, as the customer, let me make the choice.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's a great way to go because there are absolutely people that are adamant they do not want to support AI art in any form at
Yep.
all. And I think they should be given the opportunity to do that. Don't lie to them. Be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. That's what's really important.
Yeah. And I actually think and hope that I think there's some interesting things going on in the court. Me personally, this is not a game crafter stance. This is me personally. I think that one of the things that's before the courts right now actually is the idea that AI art should not be copyrightable.
Yep.
And I actually agree with that statement. I
Yep.
don't think it should be copyrightable, and that should be the domain of an illustrator. Their art
Yeah.
should be copyrightable. The art that was generated from a computer, no.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another one of those benefits that you should get by having a real illustrator working on your game is, all of a sudden your game is more protectable.
It's more protectable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Though I mean, so my day job is in intellectual property.
Hmm.
I used to be an intellectual property paralegal, but
Okay.
I still work in that law firm. So
Hmm.
does the Game Crafter offer any kind of legal services at all? Any kind of recommendations for IP protection, or is that's probably completely out of the scope of what you guys do, right?
That is way outside the scope. If there are things that we can help people, not make obvious mistakes with law, we
Yeah,
have
yeah.
links in our help system. So like, there's the testing that you have to have if you're trying to make a game for children. We tell people about that. Well, that's why we don't allow
Oh, like small components and choking hazards and that kind
choking
of thing.
hazards and
Yeah.
the types of paint that could be used in a thing and all that kind of stuff,
That's like
right?
federal, that's like just basic federal law that you
Right.
guys as a manufacturer have to comply with.
Right. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
we're very upfront about that we don't make games for children and this is why,
yeah.
for
Oh,
that sort of
perfect.
thing.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
we're like, don't put this on your packaging because that is a violation of federal law and that you shouldn't do those kinds of things. But as far as and we also have videos that we have of not us talking, but lawyers talking about trademark law or use of AI or all of those
yep,
kind of things because we run conventions where we'll invite industry experts in to talk about these kinds of subjects and we record them and put them up on our YouTube channel. And so that those kinds of things we, in that way we help with law, but we're not lawyers and we're not
Yeah.
going to, we can't advise you in any way on it
Yeah, you
other
guys don't have
than,
a lawyer on retainer that
yeah,
people can hire to talk
yeah,
about their an IP lawyer. Yeah, and IP
no,
lawyers
no,
are very expensive.
yeah. Yeah, it's very expensive and very problematic for us to be involved in that at all. It needs to be
Yep,
taken on a case by case basis. As any lawyer will tell you, the answer is always it depends.
it depends. Yep, nothing is
So
black and white in law.
that's right. So therefore it's not something we can get into. And so no, we don't help out with that.
That's awesome. I want to touch really briefly back to the art subject.
Hmm.
Does the Game Crafter provide any kind of art asset libraries for
Yeah.
designers to use?
We actually from our make menu, or I'm sorry, from our shop menu, you'll find the game design assets link right in there. And
Hmm.
that's a library of assets that other users have uploaded to our site for sale or for free on the
Oh,
Game
okay.
Crafter. So yeah,
So artists can make some money by selling their art assets through the Game Crafter as well.
absolutely. Yep.
Oh,
They do it
wow.
every
Okay.
single day. And so some people will do art assets for sale or for free.
Yep.
Some people do other things like they'll upload die lines. They like a good one that I know in the community is somebody made we do custom punch outs where
Yep.
you make a cutout shape, whatever. And so somebody made a really cool one that makes a dice tower that you can, customize your own dice tower kind of thing. So they give you all the die lines. I don't think that one's for free. I think you have to pay for that one, but they give you all the die lines pre-made to make your own custom dice tower on the Game Crafter, and but they give you instructions on like how to modify it so you can make your
Yeah.
own
Yeah.
custom one. So yeah,
Well, that's super cool. Man, this has been such a fascinating talk.
yeah.
I feel like
Thanks for having me.
I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like maybe, if I didn't know, I'm sure there's other people that didn't know the kind of bigger scope that
Yeah,
the Game Crafter isn't just printing your cardboard.
right.
It's like a full kind of one-stop shop for almost everything you would need as far as
Yeah,
making a
that's the
game.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Hey, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this talk with JT. Maybe we'll do it again because I thought this was really fascinating. So, thanks for your time, JT. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.